The other night, the Holy Spirit gave me an encounter that messed me up for days. In the encounter, He said to always ask if someone really wants to be healed before laying hands on them. There was a scene of this girl that was about to lay hands on a man who had a terminal illness, and the Lord told her to ask first, and when she asked, the man shook his head no, and he said he didn't want to give up his benefits from his infirmity. I knew that God was speaking to me directly and that there was an area in my life that I was unwilling to let go of. I knew that God was showing me that I was resisting His healing over my life because I didn't want to leave my comfort that I had. The last few months were only by God's miracle rescue that we survived, and there was a part of me that was scared of letting go of the doubts and fears inside because I was traumatized by going through so much. It was so scary to let go of those things, but I knew that God was trying to teach me to trust His ways beyond my understanding. He was trying to show me that He wanted to do new things and that He would show up in different ways. And He wanted me to finally let go of the offense I had against Him for everything that I've been through. After several days of ruminating over my promises from God and what it would cost me to let go of my connection to the past me with the problems, sickness, and needs, I eventually began to fold myself into a surrender and an understanding of what God was saying to me. It was through a very symbolic dream, which He gave me an inner witness of understanding. And God wanted me to destroy every thought that was negative and believe that I had been free of all the problems and burdens and health troubles. God wanted me to melt away every doubt and fear and only have faith, hope, and love to remain. Only His promises could stay if I really wanted to welcome His healing love into my life with a dream fulfilled. A caterpillar is constantly growing bigger, and just as we grow with burdens, the more we stay in our flesh way of thinking with fears and doubts or the attachments to the comforts that came with our sicknesses or our troubles, like we have to let go of one before we can reach out and grab another, like crossing over monkey bars. You have to let go of one branch before you can grab onto the new. And God was asking me to let go of my understanding of the limitations I had of how God could help me. In my past, I was holding on to my past identity. I was clinging to my wounds and I was coddling myself from my fears. Fear spreads and grows like cancer, and the absence of fear always means the absence of doubt. But if we do not kill off every trace of those fears, then they grow bigger and bigger, like a big fat caterpillar limited to the ground. Every time the caterpillar molts, it grows bigger and develops new skin folds. It is like going in circles and always expanding. The caterpillar dreams of being a butterfly while being absorbed in this plump caterpillar body who has no freedom. Her life is very unlovely looking, but yet she has a promise of being a butterfly, which is completely opposite of what she knows and what she sees and what she is. Since God had led us on this faith walk journey to an unfamiliar state with no financial support aside from His promise, I went through many highs and lows. There were so many traumas that I had been holding on to, and those fears of not surviving were like tumors that were taking over my life. It's been beyond terrifying. And there usually seemed like there would be no way for God to send us what He promised. We've had times where we sat in parking lots waiting for God to rescue us. And we've had times where He took us to a mountaintop resort with all paid expenses. It's been extremely low and extremely high. God would encourage me to press into my faith and the number amount that He promised to send. But it was getting hard to believe after going through those life or death faith exercises for so long. I didn't get to choose how long this journey was, and so I was getting angry and impatient and embarrassed. It's been humiliating how long it's been. Yeah, I don't have control over that because I'm following the path that God made for me. Back in this July, just when I thought everything was about to finally be over, we were close to getting an apartment. We were looking at furniture. It looked like it was going to start to happen. And then I was waiting for God to refill me, and He woke me up one morning, 5 a.m, and He said, "Follow me to the aspen trees, to the place of tangible hopes." And the aspen trees was symbolic of where there was buried treasure and where there was protection. And we were in Michigan, and He led me. I only had enough money for about one night in a hotel and a little food and gas. And He led me to follow Him, and we drove to Illinois, in Chicago. And I had to believe that He would support me and keep His promise day after day after day for all these months. And I can't even tell you how painful that was, because I finally thought I was going to get my apartment. And I thought it was finally going to be over, this long journey that's been going on for all these years. Back when God asked me to take a huge leap of faith and to get a hotel room when we were about to be homeless for one night. And that night ended up turning into like 6 years of God continually to miraculously support us. And He would teach me how to exercise my faith, how to press into my faith. But it was exhausting. It was traumatizing. Oh, and the worst of all was having to do it openly and to subject myself to people with no faith, who are blind spiritually, who are blind by faith. They have no faith. And so I had to hold on to the dream God gave me, the promises God gave me. And He asked me in return for these miracles of support that I would share my life openly, which was the most uncomfortable thing for me to do ever, because it goes against the grain of what I naturally want to do. And it has been more painful than I can even put into words. But it has been awfully also very rewarding, because I've seen God's intentional love manifest for us over and over and over again, with homes and support and miracles to pay my bills. And He's given me 3 cars during all these years through different seasons, and He's always taken care of us. But like that, it's like stains on a garment, and it just kept building up to where my faith was getting dirty. I was holding on to all these disappointments, all this pain, all these memories. And then on top of it, all the people who had no faith, who would just shout out something ignorant to faith about my story, not knowing that I was doing what God was telling me to do. So it was really, really hard. So I didn't get to choose how long it was. And I had to deal with the humiliation of going on so long, and it seemed like there was nobody left that even cared. It's been like so quiet. But I have promises from God, and this is my intimate dance with Him. And He showed me a vision the other night of us dancing, and He said that we protect each other. And so I know that even as I do this dance with Him, that even if the whole world didn't even notice, that Jesus would protect me. Since we entered Chicago last July, I've had my car taken away twice and stolen once, so that's 3 times. We're in the middle of this huge city of having nobody to support us, no way to support us, but only trusting in, whatever way God decided to deliver, whether it was a donation or, whatever, a loan, or there hasn't been a loan this time, but whatever He decided to deliver. It's terrifying at the thought of not having a car, because there'd be nowhere to go. And each time I had to pay over $1,000 to get my car back, but God provided for that too. And there were times when God didn't refill our food until there wasn't enough to get through another day. So I had to battle this nagging fear of not having a way to eat, even though God promised that He would send our support just in time. And that fear of not being able to buy food was like crippling to me. It was traumatizing, and I'm so thankful that God rescued us, and I got to experience His ever-present love and His promise being fulfilled again and again and again. But what it cost me through facing those fears, the fears is what hurts so much. It's a mental abuse. Fears are torment. And I had my faith stretched beyond what is even describable. And I pressed myself to believe in God's promise would emerge for us and save us when there was no obvious way to survive. And you really can't even put it into words what it feels like unless you actually had to step out and walk something like this out. Because most people have a home or a place to stay or someone that cares to let them stay with them. And if they don't, most people don't have this kind of situation. It's very unique, but God told me to embrace being different because it was going to become very special for me and beautiful. We had one night that we slept in a car at a travel center gas station, but then the next morning, God lifted us up into a comfortable room where we could feel the relief of having a bed and bathroom and shower. To never be able to put down roots is the most painful thing of all. But the other night, God reinforced His promise to me and promised to give me my apartment that I thought I would have had by now. But I have to yield and obey to trust God's timing. Because He saved my life, I've had to give Him mine in return. That was the exchange. That was the agreement. That is the vow. That is our nuptial vows. For the past month and a half, God has given us refuge in an Airbnb apartment in the city. It's been bittersweet. It's been scary, but equally lovely to have a bed and a kitchen and a living room. I never know how I'm going to survive the next day, and so I have to lean upon Jesus to honor His vows. that He made to me. My faith has been scoured through this time because it's never been so quiet. And God has sent His support to us through those who have answered His call to rescue us, like a raven sent to rescue Elijah when Jezebel was after his life. But it has looked and felt like nothing would ever come at all. So I have had to face all those fears attached to the past identity of being in need, of being helpless, of being humiliated, of having no way to cover my needs. And on top of that, there's been this life-threatening physical issue as well, which I'm hoping I can get health insurance for so I can go down that road, but that's another topic for another time. I have felt like a caterpillar growing with big burdens and problems, and I have all these promises from God on the inside, like the imaginal disc cells of my promised butterfly life. And I've been dying to the old me so that God's promise identity could replace every trace of what I was. The caterpillar was designed for much loftier purpose. She wasn't meant to just stay on the ground and get bigger and bigger and bigger with problems and limits. She eats nonstop and chewing and absorbing everything, and after a while, the unstoppable hunger of the caterpillar will mold into something very different. A brand new transformation, a new body, completely new identity, a new look. She attaches herself to a tuft of silk and begins the process of aging in reverse. Instead of releasing the hormones that have been programmed to make her get bigger and bigger, she does not release them at all. Her molt triggers a self-destructive hormone that destroys everything except the imaginal disc cells of the butterfly coat. All that she was before is destroyed, and she begins to form butterfly wings and a butterfly body. Her chubby legs transform into tall, slender ones, and the leaf-loving worm is rebuilt using the power of the butterfly cells. Her plump, chewing mouth is transformed into an elegant straw for drinking sweet nectar, and she develops 4 wings which she has never had before. In order to enter the fulfillment of a promised life, you have to let go of the old, the past identity, the pain, the memories. If you have a promise for physical healing, then you have to start thinking and feeling like you're already healed and let go of every attachment to what you were. Since God led us on this faith walk journey, I've been in the process of going through that, but at the same time, I'm going through life or death situations, so I guess my process has been a lot more difficult than if I was just, in a comfortable place. But at the same time, being out of your comfort is like an accelerant. It's like putting fuel onto a fire. I've had to face all the fears attached to my past identity of being in need, of being helpless, and having no way to cover my needs. I've had to eliminate all that I was with problems and needs and only identify myself with who God promised I would be. I have to become like a caterpillar that melts completely, leaving only butterfly cells to be seen. It requires a complete surrender of mind to faith as I humble myself and put my doubts under my feet so that Jesus within me can rise with the power of His fulfilled words. He promised to be our home and to richly cover all of our needs through this journey. And He said that my blog was my income and that my act of sharing these faith stories and love letters with all of you would compensate me from His kingdom wealth. But I have to be open to not lean on my own understanding of what that looks like or how it could be. It may come in different ways that I've never even thought about. If you have a promise for financial freedom, you have to let go of that old identity of being in need or without support, and even sometimes the old ways of how things used to work. It means letting go of your old understanding and being open to the unlimited possibilities and power of God to meet your needs. You have to let go of the poverty mindset and see your life with an abundance. It means you're never hesitant to give or help those in need, because when you think like someone who is financially free, then you're not lacking and you have a generous heart to share the wealth, because you know that you're never going to run out, but you always only accumulate more and more. So there's plenty of love to share. You're not greedy, you're not a hoarder, you're not stingy. You don't make idols out of your money by holding on to them and being fearful when you spend. Even spending is an act of worship when you are trusting in God. You have to let go of every fear and doubt and all that you were to cross over into what you are promised, becoming nothing but the promise inside, without any trace of the heavy burdens, negative troubles, or symptoms of before. Are you ready to let go of the old ways and to move into the butterfly life with me? The old methods, the old ways of support, the identity that you have with being needing, the identity you have with sickness, the identity that you have with having heavy burdens, troubles of an overweight caterpillar, having to carry around so much stress and lack and limitations, the identity of being rejected or unloved or alone if your dream is to be married and loved. You have to enter into that love because that's part of your new identity. Entering the promised life is a personal journey, and sadly, many people will never see the fulfillment because they're not willing to release their hold on the problems of the past, the doubts, the fears, and the old identity. They get mad at the people who send positive prophetic words, and they'd rather keep their addiction to the negative, fear-based, religious, spirited words, because they're too afraid to believe. They're too afraid to let go of their unbelief. They're too afraid to open their heart to say, it's not too good to be true. That's my promise from God, and that's how my life is going to be. So instead, they place blame and accusation on the prophet, even calling them false because the words didn't come to pass. But the truth is, the words didn't come to pass because of their unbelief, because of their hardened heart, which is a sin. It's a rebellion against God. They're calling out all the other people's sins while carrying the biggest, fattest sin of them all. And so they turn their unbelief into also an accusation and a judgment against the very mouthpiece of God. The fulfillment starts from within first, like a caterpillar digesting itself to nothing but the cells of a butterfly. The promise starts from what you think and feel and believe before it is seen on the outside. Will you be a caterpillar or a butterfly? It has to be one or the other, or you will never see the fruition of your dreams or promises from God. In James, it talks about those who are double-minded will never receive anything from God. because they're unstable in all of their ways, and they're tossed to and fro like an ocean of the sea. And those who are wicked, with wicked thoughts, a wicked mindset, will never know true peace. The fault is not in the prophet who has given you the promises of God, or even at God. The fault is only in the internal dialogue that you have on the inside, what you believe and what you tell yourself, who you see yourself as who you are. When I close my eyes, my life is different. I see the life that God promised me. I see the way God promised I would be. And I'll tell you what, it looks nothing like what it is right now. And I'm happy that I get to share this transformation process with you, because how boring is it just to always see someone who's always already on the top of the mountain? I would much rather if you and I held hands and we walked together and we made our journey up to the top, and that we could reveal all the steps and leave all the trail open and uncovered so that other people can follow along as well. Only you can change what you see on the outside, and God will be the power to bring it to be. But only you can decide what you will believe. Will you be the curse of a caterpillar or the blessing of a butterfly? Only you can decide. Caterpillar or a beautiful butterfly. I love you so much. Please come see more about my story and my ministry and the beautiful love letters on the blog on diamondsfromthedust.com.